Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Rivals React Radio with Lucas Rojas and Evan Medina. As always, I am Lucas, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host, who I'm glad to have back on today. We missed him last time. Evan, how are you, man?
Hey, Mr. Wonderful. Is that my new nickname?
I guess it can be. Why not?
Yeah, just like Paul Orndorff, right?
And we have a very special guest lined up for this podcast today, and he's joining us right now. He is Dennis Holden, who is the founder of Dennis Has a Podcast. You can check out the podcast at dhapshow.com. And he's also promoting the Queens Baseball Convention taking place at McFadden's Citi Field, which I believe is on January 28th. And Dennis, it's good to have you on, man. My pleasure.
Thanks for having me, boys.
And also, Dennis, you're a New York Mets fan, a New York Rangers fan, New York Jets fan, and you're a pro wrestling fan. So in a lot of regards there, you relate to us, except on the Met part, because I'm a Yankee fan. But
no one's perfect.
Hey, better the Mets than the Yankees here, coming from a Red Sox fan.
Well, it's always interesting to me. I mean, sometimes a Red Sox fan, because as a Mets fan, I always was sympathetic towards the Red Sox. I think I'm a little bit older than you guys. So I was always sympathetic towards the Red Sox fan. But then I forget we beat you in '86. I don't think about it in that respect. But I know the Red Sox don't have all the love for us, but certainly more so than the Yanks.
Absolutely. So we can take one '86 World Series compared to all the years of the rivalry with the Yanks.
Well, I gotta say, man, I still appreciate those 27 titles that we hold over both of you guys, which still doesn't add up.
It's all right. The Celtics got 17 titles. We make up for it in a different sport.
Okay. See a little bit of trash talk going on here. I like that. It's the theme of Rivals React. That's what it should be more about. But let's get things started here. This is going to be a straight up interview with Dennis. Want to pick your brain a little bit, just know what's going on in the world and in the life of Dennis. But before we even get into any of that, I want to ask you, what's the connection between you and Noelle Delaco, who I want to thank because of her, I'm able to do this here today with you and my co-host. And basically, I want to know a little bit about the story on how you guys connected and got to know each other.
Well, in the age of the 21st century, I think we're both from Yonkers, New York, and we never hooked up until I think we hooked up over social media. And me and Noelle are both very charitable people. Her with the Operation Prom and all the awesome work she does there, and I was raising some money for the Huntington's Disease Society of America. And we're two altruistic people in that respect. She's a true entrepreneur. She is someone I respect the hell out of, and we've become friends over the last couple of years. She's done this show a couple of times. I've done her stuff a couple of times, and I think the reason that we like and respect each other is because we're both, working our heads off to pursue what we love to do, help other people, and do what you love, which is you can't ask for more than that.
Right, and she's been helping me out as well, and like I said, I appreciate all the effort and being able to do this here today with you. That's another sign of connection. It's crazy how the world works, because me and Evan, you talk about connection and the 21st century, that's essentially how we were able to connect through social media. And with you, it was the same way, really. I thought it was more of a face-to-face interaction, but I guess I'm learning something new today, that it was also through social media, even though we all live in the same region, which is Westchester or Yonkers. Are you still in Yonkers, by the way? Are you still a resident here in Yonkers? Because I am.
Yeah, I'm still up in Westchester. I'm from Napier Park in the northwest section of Yonkers. Still up in Westchester. I work in the city. I've been working in the city for a number of years now, but still proud resident of the area. Proud to be from Yonkers. Ended up going to high school in another town in Westchester where I live now. But my mother and father are both from Yonkers, and my entire family worked at the same A&P up in Yonkers. So it's a funny way of life. My family moved when they came to the States. They ended up settling in the Bronx, and they could have ended up anywhere, but they stayed in New York, and I'm lucky for it.
Yeah, I definitely do want to expand beyond just Yonkers because I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this, but there's not much going on in Yonkers. It's like a peaceful,
Oh,
quiet little neighborhood. At least from what I can tell. Do you beg to differ there?
listen, Yonkers is a city of over, 180, 200,000 people. We can boast Ella Fitzgerald and, Steven Tyler and, so many wonderful, talented people. We have a Shake Shack now. Not a lot of places can boast that. Listen, Yonkers has a history that, it's not all great. But again, it's a place where, my family's from and, I've made a lot of connections in my life. So certainly not the most boring town in the world, but it's no what do you call it? New York City either. But it's a place I'm proud to call home.
Right. All right, let's talk a little bit about your podcast. You started Dennis Has a Podcast in January 2012 as an experiment of, as what you've been saying so far, personal connection. Tell us a little bit about how and why you got this idea to launch this podcast here.
So the first episode was January 12, 2012. So depending on when this comes up, we're recording it the day before. So I'm about to celebrate 5 years of doing this show, and something I'm incredibly proud of. I started it. The first show was trying to figure out what the show was. I named it after myself because I didn't want to talk just sports or just wrestling or just one thing. I wanted to talk about all the things I'm passionate about. And in 498 episodes in 5 years, we've done that. I've gotten to talk to a lot of my friends. I've gotten to meet a lot of new friends. But I've also had the opportunity to talk with Paul LaDuca, former Met catcher. I talked with Gary Austin, the founder of the Groundlings Troop out in L.A., where, Phil Hartman and Will Ferrell, everyone came through out in L.A. We talked to Chris Jericho last year, which was who's a hero of mine, which is surreal. We've had so many amazing guests. We've had so many amazing opportunities. We've done live shows. I started stand-up through the show. And it's the kind of thing where, 5 years ago I started it with just me and a microphone and a friend of mine trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And it was a lot of hours and a lot of work and a lot of sweat and tears, but I'm proud of the work we've done. And, 5 years and close to 500 episodes, it's been a hell of a ride.
Yeah, and, it's motivating for you to say something like that because, here we are, me and Evan, we're working on this podcast, Rivals React, and it's similar. I guess all three of us can relate in the fact that we just want to go out there and talk and communicate, be able to talk about the things we love the most, whether it's sports, wrestling, or anything. And I guess we are going to talk a little bit more about sports and wrestling later on. But I think it's pretty cool how you could just take that one episode and then build from there. And now here you are. You're about to have your 500th episode, which is great. And hopefully you keep doing this for another 5 plus, 10 plus, however long amount of years, because that would be amazing. And as far as the growth of the podcast, did you ever see this as just like a regular hobby for yourself, or was this the goal, like to eventually see it as a career and making a living out of this? Like, was that the thought from the start, or was it something of just you doing it as you went on?
I started it because I was bored, really. I finished grad school. I wasn't able to find a job. I went the traditional route. I'm like, I'm going to go to school and, I'm going to get a job and do the thing. I did some acting in college, but I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to make a living doing that. And so I started the show out of boredom, and it's allowed me so many opportunities to meet different people. I've met so many friends through the show. I've had some, incredible opportunities being, on the radio and doing some TV spots and, hosting you mentioned the Queens Baseball Convention, a Mets Fan Fest convention that I'm going to do we were snowed out last year, but this is the third year in a row I'm going to MC the event, or at least name the MC. And it's, it's one of those things that, when you start something, it's hard. And whenever people ask me advice about starting a show, I'm like, you have to do it. Doing one episode is hard enough. Doing a second episode, doing a third, being consistent, because it doesn't happen right away. Success doesn't happen right away.
Right.
I'm still chasing success in a lot of ways, but I think being consistent, not looking at the numbers right away, and just making sure you're producing good content, and that's something I try to do. I try to be incredibly proud of. I try to have positive people. I try to have positive conversations, and I try to learn something from everybody I talk to. And safe to say, 5 years later, almost 500 episodes, it's been a hell of a journey.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in here and ask you who some of your influences were as you grew up. Like, did you have was this like something that? 'Cause I know you said you started it out of boredom. But was there any specific influences that you said, this is why I want to do this, or this is what fuels me to want to be a podcaster?
Well, I was always fascinated by radio. I remember being too scared to go to my college radio station because I just had so much respect to the field. Growing up in New York, Mike and the Mad Dog, of course, are incredibly big in the city. Until they broke up 8 years ago or so. I was a big fan of Joe Beningo and the Overnights. I remember being in high school in the '90s, listening to that show, not being able to sleep. So I was a big sports talk fan. Liked Howard Stern and things like that. But I never, thought of myself in that ilk. Whenever I have someone on the show, I always joke that it's not Howard Stern. We're not going to do invasive interviews.
Right.
I want to laugh. I want to have fun. Really, it's something where I get an hour, once a week or a couple of times a week, where I get to talk to someone new, and to have them on the phone or have them in person, depending on the situation. And it makes you realize how much in-depth conversation doesn't really happen anymore. Maybe you'll text with someone throughout the day, but you're not really holding the phone the entire time unless you're trying to really get to know that person, or maybe someone new and you're excited about it. Long-form conversation is a lost art. And it's something I'm passionate about. And I have friends with podcasts, and I love seeing them successful. I love, the mainstream podcasts that, I listen to a ton of them too. I just love the idea of getting to know someone, getting to figure out what makes them tick.
And you mentioned how sports radio, or maybe just radio in general, was pretty much what kind of influenced you. I love that you're saying that, because that's exactly what has influenced me as well to do this. So you were a big fan of Mike Francesa. For me, it's Michael Kay, but hey, I guess we have different opinions. Or maybe you listen to Michael Kay as well, but yeah, that's kind of where my influence came from. And I guess that was kind of my question too, what Evan was going to ask you there, because I have here that did you ever see an opportunity for yourself as far as pursuing maybe a career with WWE or anything sports related like ESPN or what have you?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, the last couple of years. I'm just trying to find the right opportunity. You know what I mean? I don't know what that is, but I'm trying to find the right thing. So, I'll put my name in for stuff. I've talked to a couple of different places over the years, and I just haven't had the right fit, and they haven't had the right fit for me either. But at some point, like if the WWE came calling, or the Mets, or a sports radio or TV channel came through, believe me, I'm more than willing to listen. But it's about finding the right fit for me, because I'm not a yeller and a screamer. I'm not a embrace the bait kind of guy. Although there's certainly a place for it. But I like reasoned conversation, and I like to see where the other person's coming from. Mm-hmm. And it's about trying to find that right spot. So I'm always on the lookout for the right thing, because you never know when the right opportunity is going to present itself.
That's right. And when did you begin to establish connections with residents from all around New York? Because I know you've been all over the place. Like, you've been involved in so many different events and activities, not just in Westchester, but you said it earlier, in the city as well. What was it from that, or was it just natural that this all happened for you?
I don't want to say natural, because it makes it sound like it was easy, and it certainly wasn't easy. I could be an extroverted introvert kind of person. the first year of my show, I think I did about 35 episodes, and most of them were with friends of mine, or at least people I knew. Starting year 2, people started pitching me, like, hey, we love Dhab, we love Dennis as a podcast. Can we have this person on the show or that person on the show? And that was scary for me because, I'm like, I don't know these people. It could be a good thing or a bad thing. Forgive me, I'm a little sick. My voice is cracking. So people were pitching me, and I remember two big guests that I had were Rock Wilk, who's an incredible one-man show playwright in New York City, and Mark Adam Smith, who is a wonderful stand-up and improviser in New York City. And those two guys have been really good friends of mine over the last 4 years, and they were kind of pitched to me, and they did the show, and it was scary, and I did the prep, and I had all these questions and all these different things I wanted to ask them, and it kind of grew from there. I made so many friends in the stand-up world that it led me to try stand-up, and I've done it for the last 3 years or so. It's not my biggest passion, but I do enjoy doing it. I love having a microphone in front of a live audience. But yeah, through social media and friends, and the one thing I've learned, and I'm sure you guys are starting to learn it too, the worst thing you could hear is not the answer no. If you hear no, that's okay. So I always try to figure out who I want to talk to, who I want to reach out to. And if I get a no, that's okay. I remember I pitched John Mayer a couple years ago. I'm a big John Mayer guy. And they said no within like 48 hours. And I'm like, you know what? I can't believe they said no. I wasn't even expecting to hear back. And then no was even more exciting than maybe a yes would have been. So, yeah, it's a natural progression of making friends, doing good work, and word of mouth. Even if people don't know Dennis Holden, they know Dhab. And I'm incredibly proud about that. So if I talk to someone new, I can mention our mutual friends. And they're always very kind and supportive. So that's something I'm very, very proud of.
I find that awesome. And so, well, you said stand-up isn't like your primary thing here, but is there a way anybody can check out your stand-ups?
Whenever I do something, I'll promote it either on Facebook or Twitter. I'm going to try to get up one more time before the Queens Baseball Convention in a couple weeks because I haven't had a mic in a little bit. But yeah, it's so the first show I put on a show 2 years ago for the 3rd anniversary. It's the first show I ever put on. We did it at Astoria Coffee in Queens. I think we had like 40, 50 people come through. We had 10 comedians. It was an awesome night. We did a 4th anniversary at the People's Improv Theater. That was surreal. We did a 400th episode event with a band and improv and stand-up. We had like 100 people there. So, yeah, I love doing these live events. I'm trying to work on another one now. With the QBC coming up, I don't really have time to do a 5th anniversary or a 500th episode show, so I might have to do it in February or March. So as soon as I get it together, go to dhabshow.com and we'll promote the hell out of it.
Sounds good. I'll look forward to that. And next question here. You have also been on SNY's Oh Yeah, which of course is the Mets broadcast network as well. And it's a show that looks back on classic New York sports stories. And I believe Charles Curtis, who I had on yesterday, had some involvement with that as well, as he told me that he also has a connection with you. Can you just tell us a little bit about your story here and how did this opportunity present itself?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to tape that, and Curtis is, Charles has done some wonderful stuff. Like he writes for USA Today. He's killing it right now. For the Win is some of the best work. Him, Ted Berg, all the wonderful people there. They do awesome stuff. I'm a dude with a podcast that a surprisingly little amount of people listen to. No, we do well. But yeah, they asked me to do it, and I went to Midtown. It was in some hotel room, and I riffed on 10 stories or whatever, 15 stories, and they used a bunch of them, and it was a blast. And to be able to do that for SNY, like I said, being a big Met fan, and getting to be on TV and getting feedback from friends and new people who I didn't know so well, and listeners to the show, and getting to show my grandmother that it was really cool deal. And I think they did 3 seasons. I was on season 2, and every now and then they'll have it on SNY. And if someone sees it, I get a text or an email or a tweet or whatever, and it's always super awesome. So that was a lot of fun.
And also, you've appeared on ABC's Primetime, what would you do, and what was the experience like being a part of that?
So I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire a couple years ago, and so I took the test in New York City. It was a Scantron kind of test, and so I passed the first test. I went with my stepfather. He didn't. My stepfather is a super smart guy. Loves Jeopardy, loves game shows. He's smarter than I am, but I passed. He didn't. So he had to wait in the lobby. I went into the next thing. And in the second round, we're in the studio taking another Scantron, and there's people cheating. So we call them out and do the whole thing. And it turns out it's for the show, What Would You Do? And the people who were cheating were actors. So that was a really cool experience. And then about less than a week later, I think like 5 or 6 days later, I was on the show. I get the first question right. I get the second question wrong. I'm off. I lose. And 4.5 years later, I'm still bitter about it. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's something I haven't gotten over.
Well, hey, I mean, at least you were able to be featured. That's big.
Yeah, I look like the hero. I think if you YouTube me, my cousin put it up on there, so you get to see the clip. And they show me running out, and it's like, oh, how did Dennis do? It's like, nope, he lost on the second question because he was nervous as hell. So it happens.
Yeah, well, hey, you put anybody normal in that situation, probably even me, I would have reacted the same way. So trust me, it's not just you, man. But you've also done business with the Westchester Knicks at the Westchester County Center. What is your role with them?
So a buddy of mine has been working in New York sports with the fan relation experience for years. And he's like, do you want to do some stuff with the Knicks, with the Westchester Knicks? And I'm like, absolutely. The Westchester County Center is an important place for me. That's where I graduated from grad school. That's where I saw wrestling growing up. It's one of my favorite buildings. Outside of the Garden, it might be my favorite building. So I have the opportunity to be a part of it as part of the fan crew, throwing T-shirts and doing the whole deal. It's been a wonderful deal. I've done it a couple of times so far. We'll see how many more times I'm doing it, and hopefully my role will grow there, because it's fun. You go out there, people and kids there are there to have a good time. You chill with the mascot. It's fun. So a big thanks to my brother for hooking me up with that. Yeah, it's been a fun experience.
Yeah, that's the beauty of sports. It's not just sports; it's entertainment. Whenever you have the ability to engage in activity and put on a show, that's what ultimately makes you become a huge fan of sporting events, and that's the beauty of having it. I had experience being at the Westchester County Center as well one time, doing some photography for the College of Westchester, which is pretty much 5 minutes away from there. And so what the vice president of the school took me there to kind of shadow him, and we took photography of the Westchester Knicks when they were playing there, and some New York Knicks legends that were there as well. Actually, Porzingis was there as well, now that I remember, and I remember being front row just taking pictures of him, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. So yeah, definitely Westchester County Center is a great opportunity as far as just having fun, really, because that's what it's all about. It's not sometimes you forget you even have a job there. It's more of just going to have fun. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I can't argue with that at all.
Right, and okay, so you've hosted the Queens Baseball Convention at McFadden Citi Field and are thrilled to have been back invited for the third year, you said earlier, to MC the Queens Baseball Convention. Again, it's going to be January 28th. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on that day and what you've done there in the past?
So you can get tickets and more information at queensbaseballconvention.com. This year's event is on Saturday, January 28th. I think doors are 11 or 11:30. You can get the information at queensbaseballconvention.com. This year is going to be a Catch Astoria. It's Catch Astoria in Queens, right off the NQ line. So check that out. This year, Bobby Valentine, former Met Bobby Valentine, former Met coach Tim Tuffle are going to be there. They're going to be doing some panels and signing autographs. Mr. Met's going to be there. Sandy and Pee Wee, the mascots from the Brooklyn Cyclones, are going to be there. There's going to be other vendors. I'm going to be going around asking trivia questions and talking to the people and having some fun. It's a great event. This is going to be year 4. Last year we were snowed out. 2 years ago, I emceed the event, which is an absolute blast to do. You get to see your Met fan friends. You get to see some new people. You get to see some former Mets. You get to see some beat writers and other talented people. It's one of my favorite days of the year. I am continually humbled and appreciative for the guys who run the event, Dan and Keith and John, for allowing me to do my stuff there. It's like I said, it's a blast. So if you're a Met fan or you love New York baseball, specifically the blue and orange, it's a great day. So check it out, queensbaseballconvention.com, Saturday, January 28th. I think, like I said, doors are at 11 or 11:30. The event will go on to about 6 o'clock or so. So it's a great day. We'll hang out. Maybe you'll win a T-shirt. There'll be good stuff happening.
I'm not a Met fan, but am I invited?
I don't know. I don't know.
Keep them Yankees out of there.
It sounds fun to be a part of it, so why not show off some Yankee merchandise there?
Well, listen, as long as you're not a jerk, I think we're okay with that. It's one of those things that and I'm curious how you guys go about it. Because listen, I grew up as a sports fan, but like my deal is that I love my teams, but I don't hate other teams. Like I sincerely don't. I love my teams. And, if you don't like my team, that's fine. But just because I'm a Met fan, I don't root against the Yankees or the Phillies or the Nationals or the Braves. As a Jets fan, the Patriots are a whole other deal. But for the most part, I just want my team to do well. I don't root against other teams.
Yeah, I was going to say that last Patriots-Jets matchup wasn't so good for the Jets.
We're just dragging it in there now, aren't we?
Well, I have a chance. I mean, you never know. We're not guaranteed anything. No, I'm one of the most. A lot of Patriots fans have a bad rep as being overly cocky, but that's the opposite of me. I'm very humble. A lot of people are like, they're going to destroy the Texans this weekend and whatever. And I'm just saying, you know what? Take it one game at a time. It's sports are unpredictable. Anything can happen.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, it's something that I wish I grew up playing sports. I love sports, but I wish I learned piano or something. That way, because I always equate it to Broadway. Like you're not going to go see Hamilton and be upset that that Aaron Burr dropped a corner route and missed a touchdown. It doesn't have I can't. Right. I spent $1,500 and Alexander Hamilton broke his bat and he didn't slide going into second base, so we lost the game. It doesn't equate that way. So it's so funny being a sportsman because you have no control over it, but it controls us, which I don't know how that works.
Yeah, sure does. So I wanted to, because we talked a little bit, there was a little bit about Chris Jericho, someone that you've interviewed who you said is obviously like an idol for you. Tell us a little more about that experience, what that was like, and have you really ever maintained contact with him at any other time, or did you just talk to him that one time?
I was able, a friend of the show, friend of mine, knows I'm a big fan of Jericho, and for about a year and a half before that, he's like, do you want him on the show? And I'm like, yeah. And that's why my voice broke there. Like, sincerely, that's not even me being sick. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So he's talking about it for a long enough period of time, and Jericho's like, yeah, I'll do it. We'll figure out a time, but. I'm like, don't, make Jericho hate me before he even does the show. And then, the day of or the day before, like within like a 24-hour period, my buddy's like, what are you doing tomorrow at whatever time it was? And I'm like, you tell me. It's like, I'm getting you, Jericho. I'm like, okay. And he was great. He was supposed to give me like 15, 20 minutes. He gave me half an hour. My buddy told me afterwards he would have given me more time, but I was trying to be respectful of the time that he was affording me. And it was a surreal experience. When I started the show, almost 5 years ago, he's one of the people I wanted to have. Like, that was like a dream guest of mine. And there were like about 5 or 10 guys that were dream guests of mine. And he was literally and sincerely one of them. And just having that moment was, surreal to me, and, saying he would do it again. So we might have him on the show again at some point. I'm not saying tomorrow, but, potentially again. And it's surreal to, be able to ask questions I want to ask. We talk comedy, asked him about his time with the Groundlings and, all the different things I wanted to ask. And it was a surreal experience. And, being a fan of the dude, I'm glad he was a legit dude to me. So, it was a thrill. Sincere, not even like a professional thrill, like a personal. Yeah. I still can't believe it happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. It's one of your favorites, just being there right in front of you, being able to talk to him, have a conversation with him. That sounds amazing. So another question for with WWE, a few more here. Do you have any thoughts on the way the current product is right now? Are you still watching week to week? Do you watch Raw and SmackDown, like religiously, or do you just whenever you have a chance? And what do you think of the way that the product is, the direction of it? And, because it's obviously a highly debated topic. A lot of people have negative opinions, positive opinions, and somewhere in between. How do you feel?
Listen, I think we all have moments where, hashtag cancel WWE Network.
Yep.
Punk leaving. And, it's always one of those moments we all want to take a stand, Sandow getting released, whatever it is. But it's something I've been watching continually for 20 years. I watched as a kid. I fell out. Jericho brought me back in '96. Sincerely, the NWO was the big deal, and of course everyone thought that was awesome. But Jericho brought me back in, and I've been pretty much watching continually the last 20 years or so. With DVR, it's much easier to catch up on what I want to catch up on. So if I don't want to watch an Enzo and Catch match, I don't have to. I can watch Bayley and Jericho and the people I want to watch. I'm pretty up on the product. They do, for what it is, they don't always give us what we quote unquote want. But it's difficult. They do 5 hours of main product live every week. Mm-hmm. Every other week they do an extra 3 hours. You got NXT, which they tape for weeks at a time, but that's another. They got cruiserweights. They got the British thing that's going on. They're doing so much live stuff, so it's hard to keep up sometimes, especially if you want to get into NJPW. Or ROH or whatever the hell Matt Hardy's doing right now. There's a lot of stuff going on out there, so it's hard to keep up with everything, but there's a lot to be entertained by, and it's a fun place to be right now.
Do you have any particular favorites, like anybody who you see either A as a favorite or B as just like the next person to kind of grab the quote unquote torch and be like that top level star?
I think you never know who it's going to be. We all think we know who it's going to be. It's not. You guys are younger than me, so you might not remember Kennedy. Like, we all thought he was going to be the guy.
I remember that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It feels like Ambrose thought was going to be the big thing. He hasn't taken it. Really, all the Shield guys just are missing something right now.
Right.
You never know. Like Strowman, I thought was a joke, but they could do something with him.
I'm liking Strowman too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's doing a decent job right now. Bray Wyatt never broke through. It's one of those things that, the guys are just not breaking through, which is a little disappointing. But Jericho is always my biggest guy. I love the year he's had. I can't believe AJ Styles had the year he's had. He's been unbelievable. Bayley's always been a big favorite of mine. So I'm hoping that she has a good run through WrestleMania. I'm hoping American Alpha has a nice run for a little bit. There's a lot of talent right now, and they keep signing more and more talent. So like a guy like Sami Zayn, who, is kind of lost in the shuffle. I don't know. It's just, there's so much talent that, even a guy like Sami Zayn, who's like a mid-carder, upper mid-carder, feels like he gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. So there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of people to root for. I wish they mix things up a little bit more than they do. I think that's probably my biggest complaint. Because unlike 20 years ago, if you're in a feud with someone, you literally can only fight that person for 2 months. So I wish they did more outside of that. But there's a lot to like. And as much as the Man of Many H's is my arch nemesis in the world of wrestling, I think he's doing a good job booking NXT and trying to bring some new energy to the main roster.
Yeah, certainly.
So I take it Triple H is who you're referring to there.
I don't know who you're referring to, but the man tried to bury Jericho in the early 2000s, giving him. So if that's who you're referring to, then I think we might be on the same page.
But I do want to ask you something important about Chris Jericho, because you keep hitting on the fact that he was one of your favorites, or the reason, I guess, why you became a wrestling fan. What was the moment that sold you on Jericho? Like, what was that moment that basically just said, yeah, this is my guy right here, Chris Jericho?
Well, I mean, watching wrestling in that time, I wasn't the biggest WWF guy during that like mid '90s period, not until like '97, '98. Like me and my friends were watching WCW, so obviously the NWO was a big deal, but the cruiserweights were great. And once Jericho turned heel, I want to say like '97, '98 ish, probably '97 if I remember correctly. But he would do stupid stuff, stuff that's still remembered today. He would quote Cheap Trick. He had the Man of 1,004 Holds. He had the feud with Goldberg that wasn't a feud. He did different things, and if you read his books or you hear him talk about different things, WCW was a weird place, so they gave him a live microphone, and a lot of the times he did what he wanted to do, and it was funny as hell, and obviously he can work in the ring. And plus, what I respect about the dude, and here's what I mean sincerely, he's hosted a game show. He is a front man for a band. He was on Dancing with the Stars. And what he told me on my show a year ago is that at this point in his career, he only does what he wants to do, which, not going to lie, giving me half an hour was unbelievable. But he does whatever he wants to do. And, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. He had a web series, which I thought was very funny. But he does what he wants to do, and he works his ass off. And I could really respect that. Not just stick in your lane and do whatever, but, dude's killing it right now.
Right. And also,
he really is.
Yeah, and also earlier you said something about the roster and how big and expanded it is. I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said the fact that the fact that the roster is so big, everybody's kind of lost in the shuffle. Do you think that's why certain shows seem to suffer, in particularly Monday Night Raw, with how big the roster is and the 3-hour format? Do you think that because of that, there's just that much more pressure on the writing team to have to, book different ideas for each and every single person? And now that they have the cruiserweights and, the UK title tournament is about to unfold, do you think all of this is essentially like them just overworking themselves?
It's tough because they're doing a live show, 50 weeks a year?
Yeah.
And that's really pretty damn impossible for the talent every year, for the people every week. It's one of those things that I don't know how they're able to do that. I was talking with a friend of mine recently. Like Jericho was never really hurt, but the last few years when he came back during the Rumble and the times he came back, it was a big deal. Like I think about Edge. Edge is a big wrestler in the last 15 years, and when he would get hurt a fair amount. When he came back, it was a big deal. Now, everyone's on every show, every week, every Sunday, every Monday, every Tuesday. Nothing feels special anymore. And the matches you're going to see at the pay-per-view, you see during the week on free TV. And they put themselves in an impossible situation. There's two things I would do if I were, if I were in charge. And they're insane ideas, but I would implement them. I don't need to see the top stars on every show. If you're doing 4 SmackDowns a month, give me Cena, AJ Styles, Ambrose. Give me the top guys three times. I don't need them every time. And I'd also take 2 months off a year, not consecutively, but maybe May and November, or May and October, or February and December. I don't care. Take 2 months, go away, and it'll make everything seem a little more special. I know that's a little harder to do, but they give the wrestlers a month off every year, or 2 months, or whatever it is, because there's so much content that it's not special anymore, and it's actually a burden because you have to keep up, and it's a pain in the ass. So
it really is.
There's just so much content, and there's so much wonderful content. There's so many wonderful people, but it's hard to get excited when you're inundated with information.
Yeah, it's kind of like an overload, and that's why I asked you if you actually still, sit down and watch every week, because it can be hard to sit there, especially 3 hours on a Monday night, and then turn around the next night on Tuesday 2 more hours. It's an awful lot in a couple of nights.
Yeah, it really is, and it's not to say I don't love it, not to say I don't have a number of Facebook and text chains talking about the stuff. When Jericho won the U.S. title earlier this week. My social media and my text, my text and social media kind of blew up, which is kind of scary because everyone knows I love Jericho. But It was also kind of awesome too because people know how much a stupid, U.S. title match means to me. So, it's a great thing. I have a lot of friendships that I wouldn't have had or wouldn't have kept up with over the years without it. But, like you said, it's hard to keep up all the time, and I think we all need a break sometimes.
Yeah, me and Evan, me and Evan had to take like 2 or 3 months off of watching Raw just because of what we're talking about here, which is the fact that it's overexposure and it's not exciting or special anymore when you're doing the same thing every week. And as you said, like if there's no storylines or we're getting the same matches every single week, essentially what is the point of watching? So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, most definitely. So now with the Royal Rumble looming, got to ask you, who do you got?
Well, the betting websites, which I think that's tremendous. So The Undertaker is the odds-on favorite. Jericho, for some reason, is the number 2 favorite. Jericho should have won the 02 Rumble. The 12 Rumble.
I agree.
But everyone knew he was going to win, so they gave it to Sheamus. Still bitter about that as well.
Yep, me too.
I hold a lot of grudges. Listen, there's a lot of ways they can go. They can give it to Taker. They can give it to Goldberg. They can give it to Jericho. I think would make a lot of sense. Again, biased. There's a lot of ways they can go, but I love how much talent is going to be in the Rumble match themselves. So I'm looking forward to the tag match. I'm looking forward to what they're going to do on the undercard. But the match itself, it feels like literally everyone is going to be in the match. So that'll be a blast.
Yeah, I think it will be too. I'm totally with you though on the 2012 thing with Jericho. I was very disappointed that he didn't win that year. I thought it was like it was perfect. It was all lined up for him to win, and I was like, okay, let's go. I'm very excited for this because that was the first time he had been around in a couple of years. But yeah, I actually think this year he has a pretty good chance too, and I would really like it because the chemistry with him and Owens, I'm not sure if you enjoyed it as much as I have, Dennis, but I think that their chemistry is amazing, and I think those two having a title match at Mania would actually be an amazing story.
Yeah, my fear now is that they're going to feud over the U.S. title, set it over the Universal title, and they'll do whatever they do with Reigns. But it feels like they are going to lead to something at WrestleMania with him and Owens, and it's a long time coming. I think it'll be great. Jericho's going to go off into the proverbial sunset of Fozzy for a few months or however long he goes. So I feel like Jericho's run's coming up over the next couple of months. Listen, it's been way better than any of us thought it was going to be.
Sure.
I'm going to miss him when he's gone. But yeah, so I think paying it off for WrestleMania, as much as I want to see Jericho win, you got to put Owens over because, listen, they put the belt on him and they don't, use them correctly. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, really, that most of Chris Jericho's shine has happened at such a downtime in the calendar year for the WWE because, as I said earlier, I haven't watched. I didn't watch in October, November, or even December, and that's when some of Chris Jericho's best material was actually happening, with the list and all of that stuff. So I wasn't around for that, but yeah, it's unfortunate now that in a few months he's going to be done again and going on to Fozzy, but hopefully we still get the best of Chris Jericho for the road to WrestleMania. I don't think he's going to win the Rumble, though, because as you guys just said, he won the title, the U.S. title on Raw. So I think that's a given that the match that they might be setting up there is Jericho versus Owens at WrestleMania for the United States Championship. I do think it makes sense for Roman Reigns to headline WrestleMania as the champion. The question everyone wants to know, though, is who is Roman Reigns going to face? And I think that's what's so compelling about this year's Royal Rumble. You just don't really know, at least from the Raw perspective, what's exactly going to happen. Because at least on SmackDown, we have a little bit of a hint that either AJ Styles or John Cena will be a part of that, along with The Undertaker perhaps. But with Raw, it's like there's so many names being thrown out there as far as who could face Roman Reigns, whether that's a Goldberg or a Finn Balor. And my suggestion, I don't know if you're with me on this one, Dennis. My suggestion is to have somebody new from NXT. You know who I'm talking about. Samoa Joe debut in the Royal Rumble, have an outstanding performance, win the Rumble, and you do the Battle of the Samoans at WrestleMania for the title. I think that's a great story there.
Vince McMahon would never do that. I don't think he has enough respect for Joe, unfortunately. I think someone like Goldberg would makes sense from the WWE's perspective. I wouldn't love it, but I think they could easily do that. But yeah, from the Raw perspective, there's a lot of ways they can go. I think Owen Jericho makes a ton of sense. I think AJ Finn Balor would make a ton of sense. I think Cena Taker would make a ton of sense. I think they're going to go man of many H's and Seth Rollins.
Yes,
so I leave a lot of guys.
Good.
Yeah, so they're going to leave a lot of guys without pieces. So what does Brock Lesnar do? And do they go Dean Ambrose and Miz through WrestleMania? Who's Ziggler going to feud with? What's Baron Corbin going to do? So there's a lot of guys that are out there that are kind of out of place, and you don't know where they're going to go. Is Nakamura going to get some shine at the Rumble? Who knows? There's a lot of different ways they can go, which is great from a storytelling perspective, but also being a wrestling fan for 145 years, they can mess it up very easily.
Yeah, which is what they tend to do, such as the time when Sheamus won the Rumble over Chris Jericho. And I remember Jericho even defending Sheamus that night, talking about how us, the fans, complain that we want somebody new, and then when we get somebody new, we complain. That was a classic tweet that Jericho put out there that night. I remember, but no, that year Jericho did deserve to win the Royal Rumble. This year, I also like the fact that not only is it unpredictable, but also it's star-studded. Like, this is the one Rumble in quite a long time that it's just absolutely filled with star power. And I don't know if that's a good thing, because if you look at most of the names, like Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker, Chris Jericho, these are all legends and, guys that are not going to be around 5 years from now. You know what I mean? So in a way, it's a good thing, but then it's also a bad thing in the sense that new talent is not going to be utilized for this Royal Rumble.
Well, I think one way that might be possible is if you have some of those young guys maybe eliminate the older guys, perhaps. Maybe that could be a way to do that.
Years ago, you'd set up the lower card WrestleMania matches at the Rumble, so you have an opportunity to do that. Who's going to eliminate Baron Corbin, or who's he going to eliminate? What's going to go on with the Shield? Is there going to be a Shield moment going on? Does Kevin Owens lose the belt? Does he get into the Rumble and maybe he eliminates Jericho, or vice versa? There's a lot of ways they can go. Who eliminates Taker? What happens with Goldberg and Brock? So you could set up a lot of matches from the Rumble match itself. I'd say there's about 3 or 4 matches right now that set up and make sense. Miz Ambrose, Man of Many H's and Rollins, Cena Takers, whatever it might be. But a lot of it could be written in the Rumble, and it could be great. What goes on with Strowman? So there's a lot of ways they can go. And that's what's going to make the Rumble. It's always my most fun pay-per-view. Every year I keep saying I want to have a costume party for the Royal Rumble. It never happens because I always think of it way too late. But the Rumble is my most fun pay-per-view of the year. And this year will be hopefully no different.
Yeah, it's my favorite too, just because of the fact that it kind of sets up the entire year for WWE, and also it's a very unpredictable pay-per-view. Even though every year we know, or at least we think we know, who's going to win the Rumble, when you get to the Rumble itself, all of that is forgotten because it's WWE. You never know what to expect from them.
Yeah, definitely. So what would you say, Dennis, is your ultimate dream match? Not just for this year's WrestleMania, but maybe ever. Is there a specific match in your mind that you say to yourself, this should have always happened at WrestleMania, or this should have happened one of these years, but it never did? Or any match, that you could think of right now with any of the current talent? Could be past or present.
That's a really good question. And there's a lot of different ways you can go. I'm going to go based off just pure reality and time frame. Mm-hmm. If Austin was healthy, I think Austin Punk a couple years ago would have been kind of surreal. I'm curious how. I don't think Austin and Hogan would have been great, but it would have been interesting. Sure. The Rock against a lot of these other guys, I think could have been very interesting. There's a lot. There's a lot of those dream matches out there. Macho wrestled Bret Hart, and if you can see that on the network, which is some great stuff. That's a really great question. I think the easiest one that's coming to mind would be Punk and Austin retired in 2003. I think Edge retired in 2011 from his neck injury. As much as it would have been great to see Austin come back, you don't want to mess with those necks.
Yeah, that's always a scary situation. I always think of Sting versus Undertaker, too, because that's the match everyone wanted. And then Sting was finally in WWE, and it just never obviously came to fruition. Was that a match you also would have been interested in?
Listen, Sting is incredible. Like, well, he's damn near 60.
Yeah.
It just talks about the lost potential from the invasion all those years ago. Listen, I've never been the biggest Taker guy in the world, but I have a ton of respect for Sting, and man, I wish he was in the company a lot earlier than he was.
Yeah, me too. All right, so moving on to the NFL this coming weekend, we've got the divisional round. Some interesting matchups, to say the least. Do you have any predictions as to who you think are going to win those matchups? And then maybe if you have any further predictions, who you think are your Super Bowl picks for this year?
Let's see. So you got Houston and New England. I think New England wins that. I like Pittsburgh and Kansas City. I like Atlanta over the Seahawks, and I like the Cowboys over the Packers. I like the Cowboys and Patriots. And I like the Patriots because, listen, you could do worse than it's like the old Tiger Woods thing. Tiger Woods versus the field. It's kind of like the Patriots versus the field. So, the Patriots, I wouldn't bet against them. But you had a lot of fun teams. I think any of the teams that are left, sincerely, I think any of the teams left could win. And I think any of the teams left could do a great job, and it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. I mean, as a Patriots fan, I'm probably a little bit biased, but I definitely see where you're coming from there. I mean, they're always a challenging team, a tough opponent for anybody. But interesting that you mentioned Atlanta over Seattle. That sounds like an interesting game to me. I'm interested to see if Atlanta actually is the real deal this time around, because they usually tend to be a one and done type of team. And Dallas also, seeing if they're actually what they played as all season, a 13-3 team. I'm interested to see if they're the real deal too, especially with a rookie QB and running back combo, because Green Bay's been playing very well.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers was unreal. The fact that he is the king of Hail Marys now is kind of surreal. But you know what? Listen, Seattle is not the team they were a couple years ago. I think we all have blinders on with that. I think the Cowboys are an interesting piece. Atlanta, I don't know what to think about Atlanta, but picking them is more of an anti-Seattle pick.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think all the games are going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of them.
It's interesting that you did pick Atlanta over Seattle, because last week I had the feeling and the thought after the Seahawks beat them, or after the Seahawks beat the Lions, I was thinking to myself, I think Seattle has a great legitimate shot of just putting them out and dominating them completely. But as the days have gone by, I'm starting to think no, I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to come through and they're going to show up. They're going to upset everybody. I think this might be a sleeper game. If there's two games from both conferences that are sleeper kind of games that are going to put everyone on notice, I definitely think it's the Atlanta versus Seattle one on Saturday, and then Pittsburgh versus Kansas City on Sunday. Those two games right there, I think they have huge potential of just surprising everybody, and both games being games that come down to the final seconds. So look out. You know what? I'm going to predict Atlanta now. I think we do need to look out for Atlanta. I think Matt Ryan is motivated to shut everybody up. So now I'm going to change my pick. I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons beating the Seattle Seahawks. As far as the Green Bay Packers game against the Dallas Cowboys, I don't know, man. I told Charles this the other day, but I don't think Dak Prescott is the real deal in clutch situations yet. I don't trust him. He's a conservative quarterback. If you've noticed the trend this year, he's been protected in the pocket, and he hasn't had to make such risky plays, so to speak. And Ezekiel Elliott has actually carried the load more than he has. So when it comes to a game being on the line, I trust Aaron Rodgers in that regard, not just because he's experienced, but he's also that damn good. Whereas with Dak Prescott, he's never been there. He's a rookie, and also he's been conservative. What do you think about that?
Listen, I can't argue with that. As a rookie quarterback, has never made the Super Bowl. It hasn't happened. Dan Marino made it in the second year. Roethlisberger made it in the second year. Noah's done his rookie year. But listen, Ezekiel Elliott is a stud. That offensive line's incredible. The defense has been great there. And I don't have, outside of, Rodgers, I don't have a ton of respect for the other talent on the Green Bay team, and especially when you lose, Cobb. Cobb's injured, but he'll probably play. Jordy Nelson, I'm not so sure about. They've had some secondary problems. So, I mean, a more complete team would be Dallas, as long as they don't turn over the ball. I mean, that's a simple thing to say, but if they don't turn the ball over, I think you make a good point. As long as Dallas doesn't turn over the ball, they'll be fine. But if Dak makes mistakes, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
And then I think that game's going to say a lot about who Dak Prescott is. I know it's only his first year, but I think it really it's going to define him early on. And I mean, not maybe for his career or anything like that, but it's a big game for him. And you got to wonder if he can rise to the occasion or if the pressure will eat him up. And I personally think he's going to rise to the occasion this week.
I don't know, man, because you look at that Packers game against the Giants, and we saw how good that Giants defense has been all season long and what Aaron Rodgers was able to accomplish against that defense. And then you look at the Cowboys defense, which is not that good, and it's a little bit, questionable. Just imagine what Aaron Rodgers could do against that defense. And then you're talking about Dak Prescott having to answer the call and answer back with putting up points on the board, which then becomes a chess matchup, and they both have to go for the long ball. That's the beauty about Aaron Rodgers, is that he can go for the long ball. He can kill you in any phase of the game at any moment, and then you're forced as the opposing quarterback to have to respond and basically be clutch and take your team down the field. And that's where I think the Cowboys' flaw is going to show, because normally, yes, they have relied on the running game, but against Aaron Rodgers, I think you're going to have to do much more than run the football on Sunday.
We'll see. I think Dallas can score. I respect the Dallas offense more than I respect the Green Bay defense, so that's why I kind of like Dallas in a 34-30, something in that range kind of game.
It's going to be an interesting, fun game, that's for sure.
Sure is. I think this weekend's got some great matchups. I mean, the one matchup that everyone thinks is just going to be a one-sided game is the Patriots and Texans game. But I mean, again, like I said, I'm the type of fan who, and just as a football fan in general, not even as a Patriots fan, I look at that game and I'm not saying to myself, oh, guaranteed the Patriots win, because it's the playoffs and anything could happen, one and done. You know what I mean? If Houston comes out, they got a great defense. So, if they can put a stop to New England's, high-octane offense, obviously, now you have a very different game on your hands. So, I mean, I think I'm not going to count the Texans out necessarily for that reason.
I don't know, man. I think it's still one-sided. I think, if anything, if the Patriots do advance and they play, let's say, the Chiefs Pittsburgh the following week, then I think it's not that one-sided, because you'd have a team that has great defense in the Chiefs and a reliable quarterback like Alex Smith, but still,
I actually think the toughest opponent would be Pittsburgh, as long as they stay healthy. If they're able to beat Kansas City, I think the Steelers, if anybody's going to come into Gillette and beat the Patriots, I think it might be them.
Offensively, yeah, I agree with that. But I'm talking like from a defensive perspective. The Chiefs definitely, I think, could stop the Patriots. But if it comes down to Patriots-Steelers, basically it just becomes a game of who can put up the most points on the board, like a shootout. Dennis, any quick thoughts on that as far as the AFC is concerned?
No, I can't argue with that. I mean, this week I think the Patriots are giving up like 16.5, something in that range.
Yeah,
I give up 30. The Houston has a wonderful defense. I don't want to take anything away from them, but they can't score. They can't score, and I don't see New England turning the ball over enough to make it close. I think Pittsburgh, Kansas City will be great, and I hope whoever wins that game could make it a game in New England, because it would be fun. I think both of them could, but it's easier said than done.
Right.
Sure is. So for a final kind of bringing it all together type of question, what advice, kind of final thoughts, suggestions might you have to offer for anybody who's, aspiring to host their own podcast in the future or being involved in the media industry in any way, shape, or form? What are some of your biggest pieces of advice?
Do it. Don't wait. No one's going to come find you. You have to go find them. Put the content out there. Make it good content. That'll come with time. Don't expect your best work on day one. Don't expect it on day 200, but it'll come with hard work and persistence. And don't be afraid to go after things that you want to do. Don't be afraid when the opportunity presents itself. Don't be scared to take that chance. Just work every day. Be passionate about it. Be a good person. Conan O'Brien has one of my favorite quotes on his final Tonight Show when he lost the gig after 7 months. He said something to the effect of, I believe hard work and kindness pays off. And I'm a big believer in that. So, that's advice I would go back and give myself 5 years ago. That's advice I go back and give myself 15 years ago. And, I always like to see people with a similar thought process.
Yeah, that's inspiring. You being able to say that and having some experience with that definitely adds on to my to my motivation here to keep doing this. So I look forward to staying in touch with you. I'm sure, as does Evan. This has been fun. We've been able to talk sports, professional wrestling, and we've been able to get a little bit more about you. So that's great as well. As far as any other future projects, is there anything else coming up with you besides the Queens convention? Did he cut off?
Oh, there you are. I've lost you, boys. The Queens Baseball Convention, queensbaseballconvention.com for tickets and more information. So that's the big deal. That's coming up the end of January. And then probably in February or March, we'll do a 500th episode. 500, boys. It's a crazy number. 500 episodes or in a 5th year anniversary show. So that'll be coming up in the next couple of months. So we'll promote the hell out of that on Facebook and Twitter and all those places. But for now, we're trying to promote the Queens Baseball Convention, queensbaseballconvention.com. And listen to Dennis as a podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio. Pretty much everywhere you can get your podcasts, you can get us. So check it out.
All right. And you've been listening to Dennis Holden. Again, you can check that podcast out at dhapshow.com. And also be sure to check out the Queens Baseball Convention. So it's been fun. It's been a pleasure. As far as us, we are signing off. Have a great one, everybody.